Alright, so here we got the E-Cargo-A-GoGo with trash cans mounted. Yay! Basically, I took the cargo rack off of the KLR and welded it onto the E-Cargo-A-GoGo. I think we'll try it. It's a little bit after, it's almost 1 o'clock in the afternoon, so that gives me plenty of time to try to get to town and go through normal mayhem and then see if I can make it back before dark. Ah, totally reasonable. Got plenty of time. What can go wrong? Ominous foreshadowing. So here we are, fully loaded. Now we got the ratchet straps. The trash cans are full, but it's not really heavy trash, so I think this will be fine. I'm not too worried. Oh, let me show you the new side stand. This is one of those strokes of genius here. Because I'm using a square foot peg and I have a piece of square tubing that fits over it, there's your side stand. I don't have to figure out how to make a spring work or a pivot. When I need a side stand, I just put it down there and you're done. This has been working great. I've tested this now. Because it's on the foot peg, my foot would hold it on, so it doesn't tend to move around. Should be fine. So all I got to do now is go for a quick test ride and make sure everything feels good, and then we're just going to send it. We're going to go to town and we'll ride off into the sunset, and we'll be heroes. This will be wonderful. Yeah, we just did a quick loop around the driveway. This is my official test track. You feel the width of it with the trash cans, and when I was going down the trail after this, I think I hit every bush, because you forget they're there, but when you're doing a slow turn, you really feel they move around a little bit. But we'll get our cheesy thumbs up here, and then we'll be ready to go. See how excited I am in a couple hours when I get back. It'll be fine. Alright, we made it. I think the bike, the cargo rack, the trash cans, I think everything worked there. Except it's cloudy. Also, if you pay attention, that's east. That's sunrise. I left yesterday afternoon. So, that's not ideal. I'm going to go back in and warm up. I froze my ass off this morning. Alright, here's the update. Oh, Dreads says hi. I'll give her a break. Bye, Dreads. That's the robot. Stuck in. What is that? I saw that on a video recently. It's a British saying, basically stay motivated, stay stuck into whatever you're doing. Focused kind of a thing. So, yeah, that's all that. So, let's just do this instead. Today is February 10th. Yeah, about 9 o'clock in the morning. Okay, so we got all that going. It's cloudy. Yay, so not much solar today. Also, it might be a little, little horse. Sorry. I should draw a picture of a little horse. That'll be good. Okay. So, here it is. This is the E-Cargo-A-GoGo Part 2. I built this as a cargo bike. Hence the name Cargo-A-GoGo, and E for electric. This has been a fantastic project so far. The motorcycle wheels just float in the deep sand instead of digging in. So you're cruising along on the bicycle and you hit some silt or some deep sand. On the county road, they'll when they grade the road, they make it look smooth, which is great for everybody else. But they fill the deeper holes in with the sand. A car or a truck or whatever just buzzes right over it, no problem. But I hit that with my bicycle, and the wheels just plow in. And it feels like, like when you go to the amusement parks where, I'm trying to think of one in particular, but you come down the roller coaster, and at the very end they got the water trap to slow you down, and all the water just goes spraying, right? Well, that's what it feels like when I hit the sand. You hit that deep part, and you're just cruising along, and all of a sudden it's like lurch, it feels like you slammed on the brakes or something like that. So that'll get your attention. Or I haven't crashed yet, knock on wood, but if you're like, say for instance, if you're, you got your water bottle in one hand and you're riding with the other hand, and the whole idea of the water bottle on a bicycle is so that you don't have to stop and get a drink. So if you're cruising along at 10 miles an hour and you're drinking your water and you happen to hit some sand that you didn't see, yeah, it's going to I've dropped my water bottle twice doing that, just desperately trying to grab the other hand on the handlebars kind of thing. So, yeah, that kind of thing gets you. But with these, man, these tires, I'm like, this is the best thing ever. This was something I wanted to try a couple years ago. And none of the bikes in the rear wheel dropouts had enough room to hang the wheel in the back. I didn't have to modify these forks very much, so I figured I could get the motorcycle wheel, the pit bike wheel, whatever, on the front, but I needed it on the back so that I could run the motor. All right. And it wasn't until I got around to doing this project, what I actually thought I was going to be able to do is to take the swing arm and mount it to the back wheel dropout where the back wheel would mount. Just use that as a spot to put the swing arm. And I started looking at that, and I realized that the rear half of the frame was just going to be in the way for everything. So I'm like, well, okay. Grinder, cut wheel, zip, chop the frame in half. I didn't show any of the build on this project. I had, 30 hours of video. I just like, what? You get the idea. I just deleted it all. Anyway, so now that I'm not shivering as much, let me explain what happened here. So I got the cargo rack mounted to the back of the bicycle, and I just took the cargo rack I had made for the KLR and decided what would be ideal is if I had this bicycle set up for moving big things and not put it on the motorcycle. Okay. So if I know I got something to pick up, or if I got a bunch of trash, I'll just take this. And then if I'm just riding back and forth to town to go to work or go to the post office, if I don't have anything big, I'll just take the motorcycle or just take the bicycle, the other bicycle. So I thought, okay, I'll just take the cargo rack I had already built and put it on here. And it's wide enough to not hit the swing arm, because it's basically the same size of swing arm as what's on the motorcycle, on the KLR. So I thought, well, let's just do that. So this will be dedicated for cargo, or I might ride it once in a while, but the motorcycle, when it's finished, will be faster and better. This doesn't have front suspension yet, and I don't think I'm going to do it. If I only ride this once in a while, it's good enough it's good enough as it is right now that I could just stop. I'm going to tidy up the wires a little bit and, do some tweaks, but it's actually, it's a blast to ride. I find myself when I'm riding it, because it's got the 750 motor, 750 watts, that's 1 horsepower. It's got plenty of power and really good torque, right? So I'll be just noodling around, and I'll find myself taking a line I would never take on the bicycle. Like, if there's deep sand, I can just ride through it instead of trying to ride around it. Or a couple times I'd stop, like yesterday, I'd stop and get off and look at everything and make sure I wasn't breaking anything, because I haven't gone off the ranch with it yet. So I'd stop and look. Everything looked good. I didn't have any bolts falling out. I was actually looking at the welds around the rear suspension because, I'm not a professional welder, so I don't want to be 10 miles from home and have the frame break in half or something. So I'd stop and I'd look. Okay, it looks good. So I'd drive another couple miles and stop and look, and everything was fine. But I was at the point I could ride up and down the berms on the side of the road. It's just, those tires just dig in and hang on. They don't plow. They don't slip. They're just, it's fun. I've never ridden a monkey bike, the little Hondas, but this is what it feels like, especially with the new handlebars. Those white handlebars are from a BMX bike. And the way this bike sits, regular mountain bike handlebars are just too low. And I looked around in the scrap pile and I found those, and I just stuck them on. And I'm like, oh, okay, so now my hands are up, kind of high, but it's way more comfortable to ride. Okay, so those are probably going to stay on there. But it makes me think of a monkey bike. I think these are taller tires than the monkey bike. They're not quite as tall as a regular motorcycle wheel. And actually both of these are front wheels. When I was building the Delta and Turtle projects, I just bought front wheels because they were a little bit cheaper. And I wanted the taller tires. So these are 19-inch wheels, I think. So it's the KLR rear wheel is a 17. And so these are taller than the rear wheel. And the KLR has a 21 front. And I think these are 19s. So they're not quite as tall as the front tire on a motorcycle, but they're taller than the rear tire of a motorcycle. And since they're both front, they match. So for a bicycle, it seems, about right, or a bicycle frame, or I can't really call this a bicycle anymore, but you get the idea. Anyway, okay, so about 1 o'clock in the afternoon yesterday, I had the cargo rack mounted and welded and checked, and one of the things I really needed to do was take out some trash. When I quit riding the red bike, I couldn't pull the trailer, and I didn't have a practical way to take out trash, so I had a couple trash cans that were full, and I just kept waiting until something better worked, kind of thing. So I thought, well, okay, this is a good thing to test. I didn't want to just ride to town empty. And I needed to take out the trash, so I was like, okay, it wasn't very heavy, so I stuck it on there. And both cans were basically full of trash bags. Not very heavy, but it was at least a balanced load. So I was like, okay, about 1 o'clock, 1:30, something like that. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to go. And I stopped about 4 times on the way to check everything, and while I was stopped, I also checked the battery voltage. The battery that I'm using is a golf cart battery. This is the same battery that I was testing on the KLR. So it's basically the same motor, the same battery that I was using on the KLR. So I'm like, okay, this should work. Okay. But I just wanted to make sure, and I don't have a voltmeter mounted on this bike yet, so I couldn't really keep track of my voltages, which I'm used to doing. It's like halfway to work, you should know how much power you've got, so you know you're doing good. I have an idea how far I should get on a battery and how far, at what point should I be at half power so I can make it home again, right? So I was checking, and I was like, okay, I'm doing good, This weighs less than the KLR, but it's also geared a little bit lower with the sprockets I have on there. So I was like, well, we'll see if we make it. And I got to the motel. There's a dumpster. This is one of those weird things in this county. A business doesn't own the dumpster that's outside of their place here. Like normally, if you went to a business and you threw your trash in their dumpster, they'll get mad because they have to pay to dump that. So if in the middle of the week their dumpster is full, they got to call the waste management guys and they have to pay to have it emptied again. So a lot of times that's why they will lock the dumpster, because if their dumpster is full, they have to pay an extra fee to get it emptied again, right? Here in this county, the county owns all the dumpsters. So even though there's a dumpster outside of the motel or outside of the gas station or next to the post office, everybody is free to put their trash in those dumpsters here. Okay. I had to ask somebody one time to explain that because that's unusual. They're like, oh no, just wherever there's a dumpster, just throw your trash in it, you know. Okay, so my thought for yesterday was, if I need this to go to work and back, I want to see if it'll make it that far and back on a non-work day. In case I have a problem, I can get to work and back. Okay. If it doesn't work, I didn't miss a work day. Okay. I actually had that on the KLR. The last time I tried to take it to work, I had problems. I had a jammed up broken chain, and that was a comedy of errors. I don't remember if I made a video about that, but it was kind of a thing where I knew I was going to switch from this motor to the better motor, and I'm like, okay, I'm just going to stop riding the KLR until I get it put back together with the new motor. Ended up missing a work day for that. But fortunately the other guy was available, so he just covered it for us, and okay, fine. But I thought, okay, let me go on a non-work day and I'll take a load of trash and then see how long it takes to get there, see if I have any problems, and then I'll come home, and you know, then I won't have a risk of missing a work day kind of thing. Okay. So I checked voltage 3 or 4 times, got to the motel, dumped all my trash in the dumpster, and then saw the manager was out, or you know, and I had something I was going to drop off with her anyway, so we stopped and talked for a while. And I had 62 or 63% left in the battery. So I figured if I rounded it to 66, so I'd used 1/3 of the battery getting there, and going home is downhill, so I should use less than 1/3 getting home, so that should have left me 33% left over. Okay, so get there, get back, and have 33% left over. That's what it looked like. Okay. And we ended up talking for over an hour, so I could have plugged it in there while we were talking, but I had so much power left on the battery. I'm like, oh, we're fine. Okay. So 4 o'clock, I'm like, okay, gotta get home now. Figured it would take me an hour to get home. That would get me home before sunset. And I had plenty of battery left. So I take off, and I'm empty. I had emptied the trash cans. So I'm like, okay, this will be easy. So I'll just, cruise on home. Almost to the dump. So within 2 or 3 miles, I was like within 3 miles of the motel. It just quits, just dead. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I just kind of assumed that I had a wire come loose, not a big deal. So I, grind to a halt, get off to the side of the road, start checking all the wires, and everything seemed like it was plugged in. So I pulled out my phone, and on the app, I can see there's it's almost like telemetry. There's a Bluetooth app that comes with the battery, or you download it. So I could just look on my phone and see, well, it wasn't even connecting to the battery, so I'm like, oh crap, it's not the bike, the battery's got a problem. Great, okay. Well, all right, so I'm within 2 or 3 miles of work, probably closer to 2 at that point. And it would be 10 miles to home, so I'm like, well, it makes more sense to go back to work, So I looked at it, and I'm like, well, okay. I had a couple of tools with me, but not very much, but I was able to get the master link disconnected. And since I had an empty trash can, I just took the chain and the master link and dropped it into the trash can. And I did that because if you're going to push the bike, there's no neutral on the electric motor. It's connected all the time. And if you come to a stop, you don't pull the clutch in, you just stop and the electric motor stops. Okay. But when you're pushing it, you're dragging the electric motor and it's cogging all the time. It just has a lot of resistance. Okay. So I just take off the master link, pull the chain off, and now the bike rolls really easy. It's heavier than a bicycle, but it rolls pretty easy. So I'm like, okay, a couple miles, I'll be there, whatever. So I'm just walking along, and there's a pretty good hill that you go up, and then you can coast down the other side for a while. And then I got off and walked again and got back. Okay. And I was thinking, okay, for whatever reason, the battery went offline, but it should have had about 60% left on it still. So I had the charger mounted to the bike already, but I had not planned on using it yet. And just because I was looking to just do a quick ride to town, I just took a handful of zip ties and tied everything up and then went, So I get there, and I can't even get to the charger because it's all zip tied together. I hadn't even hooked the charger to the battery yet, but I had mounted it. I welded some tabs on the frame and then mounted the charger. So I'm like, well, okay. Knock, knock, knock. Hey, manager, I need to borrow some tools. Okay, so she opens up the room, and I grab a handful of tools, and I had to cut the zip ties. And I didn't even have a wire cutter with me, or I think I owned 3 Leatherman tools. None of them were in my backpack. This was like the comedy of errors again, where a couple days ago I had stayed overnight at the motel to work an evening shift, and then I had a what do you call it? One of those battery packs that you charge your phone with. So I had one of those in the backpack. So at the end of the shift, I could plug my phone into my battery, and then when I got home the next morning, charge the battery up. Hadn't put it back in my backpack yet. So I get there, my battery's almost dead on the phone, and I'm using the phone app to see how the battery is doing on the motorcycle. I'm like, crap, right? Anyway, so I had enough on the phone to see the battery on the bike. So borrowed an extension cord and cut all the zip ties and got the bike plugged in at the motel, and then looked at the app, and the app said 0%. So it had gone from 60 something, maybe 62, 63, down to 0 in 3 miles going downhill. I'm like, crap, that's no good. Okay, it is what it is. So it's reading as completely dead. So just go ahead and text the manager again. I'm like, hey, I'm going to be staying here tonight. She's like, okay, you can have your room from last night. We haven't cleaned it yet. I'm like, okay, that's fine. So I walked down to the laundry room, got another set of sheets, another towel. I'm just completely covered in dirt because I've been working on the bike the whole day and then jumped on it and went. So I'm like, okay, while the bike is charging, I'm going to take a shower. And so I ended up, once the battery was charging, I could see that it was also doing a cell balance, and so I think that's what the problem was. I hadn't used this battery for a few weeks now. So at some point, either maybe I've got a bad cell. I'll know that in a couple of days. If that's the case, I'll just get an RMA and I'll send it back for a replacement. I kind of think, and I wasn't keeping good notes on this, but it seemed like one of the batteries wasn't staying in sync with the other battery. When I was first testing it on the KLR, I had both batteries hooked up in parallel to give me more runtime. And the first time I did that, when I went to charge it, one battery didn't charge as quick as the other. And you're like, okay, it's 2 identical brand new batteries. They should be in sync still, and they weren't. So as a test, the next time I rode the KLR, I just plugged in one battery at a time and then recharged it. And then after testing for a while, I realized I had enough range on the KLR with one battery to get from home to work and back, and still had a few percent left over. Okay, so I didn't even need the second battery. So I was just running single battery on the KLR, which made me think single battery on the bicycle should work even better, right? So anyway, but part of that was then I hadn't used one of the batteries for a while, and okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to fully charge it again today. Plus, it was plugged in all night last night, so it had time to fully balance all of the cells, which is something I maybe wouldn't have done out here, because once it got to 100%, I typically shut the charger off. So I'm not wasting my power, because on solar, you're looking to, you don't want to run a charger for 12 hours if you don't really have to. So there's a chance that that battery needed a good balanced charge, and I never let it finish. Okay. It'll charge up to full voltage, but maybe one cell is a little bit low. And so by leaving it on the charger, I think on that battery there's probably 16 cells inside. Something like that. So it just takes a little bit of time for them all to get equalized, is kind of the idea. Okay, so that, it may still be a good battery. It's just that it hasn't been used that many times yet. So if it's not fully charged and fully balanced, that's kind of normal behavior after you use it a few times. And if you give it a full charge once or twice a week, and let them actually top off, it'll probably be okay. If not, it's a brand new battery, so I can send it back and get a replacement. So I'm not worried about that yet. It was disappointing to have to push the bike 3 miles back to town, but this is to be expected on a new project. This was the first time I'd ridden it off the ranch. Okay. So at this point, I'm really happy with how the project has turned out so far. And if my only failure was on the battery that I bought, not on something I made, I gotta feel pretty good about that. I was a little bit bummed when I was walking, but I also found a lucky penny on the side of the road, so I thought that was funny. Stopped and picked that up. Yeah, cause. Okay. So now I'm at the motel. My cell phone is basically out of power. I don't have a charger with me, and I didn't think about it. I could have borrowed a charger from the manager. I just didn't think about it, and she's trying to get some sleep so that she can be awake in the middle of the night when somebody checks in. So you try not to bother her in the afternoon kind of thing, because that's hard. Anyway, so now I'm sitting there in the motel with a dead cell phone, and I didn't have my laptop with me because I wasn't planning on going to the motel, and that kind of thing. So I'm sitting there about 5:30 in the morning. I wake up and I'm like, okay, I'm ready to go, but it's dark and it's cold, and that's when it just finally realized it was 80 yesterday. I was wearing a t-shirt like in the picture. I didn't take a jacket with me because I thought I was going to town and coming right back. So now I'm like, okay, it's 5:30 in the morning. It's 45 degrees outside. Oh, no. I'm like, oh, this is going to suck, but okay, whatever. So I'm just bored. I don't want to sit there and wait for, 3 more hours for the sun to come up and start warming it up. It's going to be 70 today, but I don't want to wait for 3 hours and I'm just going to be sitting here staring at the wall or something, and I'm just wearing dirty clothes. I could probably work a shift, but I'm just covered in dirt, so I don't want to work cleaning rooms with dirty pants on, that's no good. and I don't have anything else to wear. I could wash my dirty clothes, and then what do? You got to wait and wait for them to dry and then put them back on. So yeah, it was just kind of what do you do kind of thing. So I'm like, I was waiting for it to get light enough that I could see, and then I was going to ride home. And I knew what time sunrise was because I had ridden home the morning before after working the evening shift. So I'm like, okay, if I leave at 6:30, it's light enough to see, and then the sun will come up in 20 minutes after that or something like that. I think it's 6:50, 6:55 was sunrise this morning, something like that. Okay. So, and now I'm like, okay, now I'm filled with doubt because this battery has already failed on me once. Is it going to get me home? Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, this was like, I've been watching a lot of SpaceX with the Starship, the new prototype. They fly it, it doesn't work, it crashes or blows up. Okay, and then they go back and they do some more testing, and then they fly the next one. You just keep, you just have to assume it's not going to work the first time. Okay. So, literally, okay, test it, and at least I've got 2 of the batteries. So I think what I'm going to do is I'll get both batteries fully charged. I'm going to do some work on the bike. I want to add some stuff. And then I'll take 1 trash can worth of trash, and I'll put the second battery where one of the trash cans is now. I only made a spot for 1 battery on this because I didn't think I would need the second one. Okay. I'm going to go with that because most of the time I could just have 1 battery and it should work. If I can figure out what's wrong with this battery, or if I test it and it works the next time, maybe it was just because it had sat for a while and they got out of balance. So, maybe the day before I go for, if I know I've got stuff to pick up, maybe I'll just plug in that battery the day before and make sure it's totally ready to go, and then we'll be okay. And if there's any doubt, I could always stop at the motel and recharge it again. If it came to that. It'll fully charge in 2 hours. So if it's half full, I could charge it in an hour and I'd be fine. Okay. Obviously the goal is it should be able to go round trip on a charge without having to stop. Yeah. Anyway. So left the motel at 6:30. It was about 45 degrees. I'm in a t-shirt. The sun isn't up yet. The only thing I had going for me is I was wearing leather gloves that I was working in. Actually, I felt like I wanted to wear gloves, in case you crash. At least you don't screw up your hands, kind of thing. Or if something breaks, it would be nice to be wearing gloves, kind of thing. So I had the gloves on, and jeans and a t-shirt. And time I got home. Oh, and I was freaking hungry. I got to the motel, and I realized, okay, I'm hungry. I look in my bag, I've got 2 Cliff Bars, and I could at least fill up my water bottle. And I wasn't planning on staying the night. And it's, a day before payday, and I don't have any cash. I can't go to the store. I could have borrowed money, or, I probably could have borrowed, food, but I wasn't thinking about it. I was thinking I was just going to come home again, So, get home, I'm freaking cold. I'm like, I got home and I was okay. I was cold. And then I got off the bike and then I started shivering. I'm like, okay, that's probably not a good way to be, but I knew I could do it. It was just not comfortable kind of thing. So, got home, heated up some coffee. I'm like, okay, and eat my oatmeal, and then I wasn't starving to death, and got some calories, and eat some warm food, drink some, some warm 3-day-old coffee probably by now, and then we're good again, So yeah, after fully charging the bike at the motel, I get home and it said 72%. Okay. So that's good numbers. If I can get there and use about 30%, 30 or 40% going, and about 30% coming back, I should have had 30% left over after a round trip. Okay. So once I get the battery issue figured out and either replace it or just fully charged, we should be plenty, with one battery. But, yeah. But the good news is the bike itself, oh man, it is awesome. So I got one little detail on the battery, which, okay, we'll solve it. It'll be fine, And this may be a bike that, I mean, if this works really well, I could see riding this as my daily driver at least until I get the KLR finished, right? I haven't started putting the new motor on the KLR yet. I figured, okay, let me finish this first, and then it'll either be the KLR or I might mess around with the ATV, that blue one. Haven't decided yet, so I'll put one more day into this one, and then it should be ready to go. And then probably we'll work on the KLR. I've got 2 brand new motors, so we'll probably put one on the KLR and maybe one on the ATV or something. Other idea, I don't remember if I talked about this or not. Yeah, there we go. This or, let me pause for a second. Okay, we're back. So, this is more of a promotional vehicle that, they've just got a coffee stand built onto the trailer. I'm calling it a tuk-tuk, but there's other names for it. Basically, I think this one is from Italy or Europe somewhere. In the city streets in the old cities in Europe, they're very narrow, and so they've come up with all these creative solutions for how to move things around within the city. And so then these guys came along and rebuilt this, and this is probably on a boardwalk somewhere, so they would probably transport this one by truck, unload it, and then roll it onto the boardwalk. And then, it's just an amazing attention getter. Like, somebody would be walking past and see this and like, oh my God, let's go stop and get a coffee and take their picture next to it, kind of thing. Well, I got to thinking, now it's already, in the 70s in February here, so I don't really need this for this winter. But what if when I was building the ATV project, if I could build a cab on it, right? I mean, the funniest thing would be to put a diesel heater on it so I could have a heated cab on an electric vehicle to get to town and back on. And then I thought, man, what if I could take this idea and instead of that little trailer they've got, what if I could put a teardrop trailer on there for camping, right? So that's one of the ideas I'm thinking about. So if I say tuk-tuk, this is kind of the idea. Now, what a tuk-tuk normally is, this is one in Thailand. This is pretty traditional, and this would be completely legit also, right? So if I started with the ATV and an electric motor and the trailer tires that we got, we could build something like this. I could build something like this. If I had a shaded roof, so it would be sort of like what Delta was with the electric motor and the solar roof. But set it up a little bit different, where on Delta I was sitting down recumbent so I could pedal, But the weight of that setup, it really wasn't practical to pedal it anyway. And adding pedals to the drive chain or drive line really made things way more complicated than they needed to be. So if I can just take electric motor, single chain, drive the rear axle, and then we're done. We don't even mess with pedaling. At that point, I could sit up a little bit more, which would be way more comfortable on the bumps. Okay. As when I was sitting down on the recumbent, I was just taking a hammering. You can't get your feet underneath you at all to, if you go over a really rough section. So I might do it where I could stand up a little bit over, instead of sitting down with all your weight on your butt, if you could stand up a little bit going over the bumps, that would be nice. Okay. So we'll kind of play with that. And then I could also set this up to tow a trailer if I had to haul something bigger. On the Delta, I tested mounting the generator to the back, and that worked great. I could take the generator, run it into the charger, and I was recharging while I was riding, so that could give me much longer range if I needed to, although I don't think it's actually legal here, but it's been allowed that the ranchers could drive their ATV into town instead of driving their truck. Okay. So the sheriff has just basically said, yeah, you can drive your ATV. So if I had something like this, it's an ATV, I don't have to try to make it an electric bicycle. If the golf cart battery still works on it, 1 or 2 batteries, that should give me plenty of range to get to town and back. Then I don't need the generator, but it was an interesting thing to test. Then I could say it's a hybrid. I could run the generator if I wanted to, and then the thing would be fully charged when I got home, or I could shut the generator off and cruise in silence, and then if I wanted to, I could start the generator. Okay. But that's not exactly practical either, because if I need longer range, that would be to go to the next town that has a dollar store or a grocery store or a hardware store. That's a different county. So I don't think I could get away with driving an electric tuk-tuk ATV down the side of the freeway to get to the next town. So that's not super practical either. There is one other option though. If I went the back way, the opposite direction, then the other town, Fort Hancock, is in the same county. So if I could stay off the freeway, it's about 50 miles one way. So that's a pretty good adventure. But if I could go 15 miles an hour, I could be there in 3 or 4 hours. Let's say I really want to go buy ice cream. Or something. Think of something they have that we don't have. Go the back way, ride 50 miles, then put the generator on it, because there's a long way that you could ride that the noise wouldn't bother anybody. And really, that little generator, it's quieter than any car driving, really. So fire up the generator when you're driving between towns and then shut it off and go electric into the town, so everybody think that was, well, they wouldn't even see you, If you're not driving a diesel truck, you're pretty much invisible out here, so whatever. Anyway, that's the tuk-tuk. So a cab would be really nice some days. Oh, and then the other idea, if I had the generator in the summer, get one of those little EcoFlow, whatever they call it, the little portable air conditioner. That would totally cool off a small cab, because they're meant to, you could cool off a van, right? So if you had the generator and the solar panel and the tuk-tuk with the cab, I could have an air conditioner. I gotta say, at the end of the day, you've been cleaning rooms all day or whatever you're doing, and then you jump on the bicycle and you ride an hour in the heat of the afternoon, I think an air conditioner might be a good idea. It might be okay. Alright, that's the debrief. The bike made it to town and back, no problems, except for the battery. And I think we got that figured out. So we could say that the E-Cargo-A-GoGo is a qualified success. Let's just go with that. Yay! Alright, that's it for now. More coming whenever. Bye!